Good evening, friends. My name is Krishna Gupta, and today we are having a discussion on environment and disaster management. So, basically, environment and disaster management is part of the GS paper 3 of UPSC syllabus. So, it includes basically the environmental parts of how our environment is and how we deal with our environment. Plus, what are the disasters that are being faced in the current scenario. So, we will be dealing with the environment and disaster according to the syllabus of UPSC. Along with it, we will be saying the trend analysis of the questions that are being asked by the UPSC. So let's start with the program. So first thing I will be asking you that why you are preparing for UPSC. But this is not my first question. My question is that how you will prepare for UPSC. So here at Guidance, we will be providing you a very basic approach so that you can keep your preparations very well and clear the examinations with flying colors. So let's start with the first part. So environment and disaster management. So what is our environment? What are the aspects of environment? If we will see this, then we can just imagine it like that. If this is our earth, okay, and we have plants, that is flora, and we have some animals. So this is our fauna. This is plants and animals. So the factors that plants and animals contribute to are the biotic factors. But there are other factors. For example, there is water, okay, and there are other factors like sunlight. Other factors such as temperature, pressure, they also contribute to our environment. So, these all the factors that are biotic and abiotic. For example, human beings, animals, and plants, they are the biotic factors. But other factors like air, water, soil, and minerals, they are the abiotic factors. So, these abiotic and biotic factors, their interaction, the study of these interactions, this is the environment. So the study of interactions of biotic and abiotic factors, this is the ecology. So we will move further like, now what are the syllabus aspect of the GS paper 3? So in syllabus part, we can see that in mains, it has specified that environment and disaster management. So environment includes conservation. Conservation of what? Conservation of environments and its components. What can be its components? Biotic components, abiotic components, basically biotic components. So for the biotic components, there is flora and fauna, and it defines our biodiversity. So conservation of environment, ecology, and biodiversity, that is the conservation part. Now, next is environmental pollution and degradation. What is the environmental pollution? For example, if I'll just ask you that if we bring some kind of merchandise, so that merchandise can be cloth, but with that cloth, we get some papers, some plastics, some clips made up of iron or some plastics. So these other factors that become wastage. So this wastage part, they doesn't get degraded easily. So this wastages, they further get a pollutant part. They become pollutants. So they are basically environmental pollution. Now, this was one merchandise, but if we will go further, for agricultural products, for industrial products, for other kind of biological products also, everything includes one or the other kind of waste. So this waste become pollution or pollutants if not disposed properly. Next is their degradation. Degradation of what? The wastes, so that they do not become pollutants. So how can be degradation be made? How these pollutants can be degraded? So we can see that the wastage which has occurred, if they are disposed of properly, if they are managed properly, then they can become the part of the environment and they do not become the pollutants. So this thing, this degradation, it can be occurred through various kind of processes. For example, solid waste management rules have been made, e-waste management rules have been made. So these parts, they are the tools so that this wastage does not become the part of pollutants or pollution. Next is environmental impact assessment. What is environmental impact assessment? It is a very basic thing that has been done from various years or various decades, but its significance has been realized now. Now, if I have a project, for example, if there is a hydel project or a dam project, so this dam project can affect the environment in various ways. It can be, for example, beneficial also, and it can be negative, it can have negative aspects also. For example, if I have a dam, it is constructed on a river stream. There is a river stream. Water has been accumulated, but we will see that there are various forests in the vicinity of this dam. Here, there can be various kind of settlements, forest settlements of human beings, and there can be other environmental aspects also. Now, if this dam has been constructed, if there is flooding has occurred, so this flooding, it can include or it can dispose this whole area, which includes the forest part and also the human settlement part. So the conclusion is just one project, it can affect the life of people, flora, and fauna. That is different species also, which will be affected by this construction of dam. So environmental impact assessment, it basically it is the assessment of the environmental project which it will be affecting human beings and the environmental parts. So we will be studying environmental impact assessment with the various other things. Now, next is disaster and disaster management. What is a disaster, first thing, and how this disaster can be managed? Disasters are basically, first thing is they are some kind of hazards. For example, an earthquake. It is a hazard. Why it is a hazard? Because it can have a large scale destruction. It can occur on a large scale and it can cause some destruction. But when this destruction occurs, if it affects the life of people or some people die due to this destruction, then it becomes a disaster. So, we will be studying here the various kinds of disasters and how these disasters will be managed. In India, we can see that we have disaster management rules for cyclones, for tsunamis, and for earthquakes. So, if a disaster occurs, then only this disaster management applies. If this disaster does not, if the hazards does not become disaster, the disaster management rules, they are of not required at that point. We are lucky in India that we do not have volcanoes in the vicinity of Indian mainland. We have volcanoes in India, but they are at Andaman and Nicobar Islands, situated at barren islands. So, this kind of volcanoes, when they erupt, they are hazardous. But because human beings do not live in the vicinity of that area or in the environment of that volcanic eruption, so it does not become a disaster. So we here learn about the disasters of landslides, disasters of earthquakes, cyclones, etc. Now, next we have here, now we will be seeing the syllabus part of the prelims exam. Now, in prelims exam and in mains exam, environment plays a very different role. In mains exam, environment aspect is a bit well defined and it is short. But in mains exam, in prelims exam, it is very varied. In prelims, it is very varied because around 18 to 20 questions on year to year basis are asked from the environment and ecology part. So environment becomes very much important from the prelims part. Now we will be seeing its component like as the environments and its components, first part. Here it has defined as ecology and functions of an ecosystem. Now, what are different ecologies and different ecosystems? As we have seen in our first slide, that there is earth, there is water, there is land, there are forest, flora, and fauna. Their interaction becomes an ecology. Now, if this interaction happens on the land only, then it becomes a terrestrial ecosystem. But if this interaction comes on water part, then it becomes an aquatic ecosystem. So, therefore, we have terrestrial ecosystems and aquatic ecosystems. Now, in terrestrial ecosystems, if I will just specify about Indian part. So, in India, we have different kind of forest. That is moist deciduous forest, dry deciduous forest, evergreen forest. We have semi-arid forest. We have deserts. We have grasslands. We have mountain forest. So, they all consist of different kind of species. This all varieties of ecosystems, they have different kinds of species. For example, in terrestrial ecosystem of tropical rainforest, there are broadleaf forest. They are evergreen. But in dry deciduous forest, when there is rainfall, then only those leaves will be green. And after the rainfall has gone, when the summer part comes, then leaves are shed down by the trees. So these parts or these ecosystems, they define the characteristics of the species which are grown on those ecosystems. Okay? Now, similarly, in aquatic ecosystems, we have different kind of ecosystems. For example, marine ecosystem of coral reefs, mangroves, okay? We have estuaries, we have lagoons, we have wetlands also. These aquatic ecosystems, they can be occurred in oceans also or seas, and they can occur in inland also, like wetlands. Okay, so we'll be looking these aspects in detail further. Now, next are what are environmental problems? So we have seen that we have different species, we have different kind of terrestrial ecosystems. Now, there is one or the other kind of issues or problems that they are facing right now because of the increased human activities. So what this increased human activities has done? So first thing is climate change. Now, we can see that what is climate change? Climate change is basically the increase in temperature of the atmosphere because of the increased interaction of human beings with the environment, or increased use of increased use of human resources, increased use of resources by the human beings. I can explain this by simply making a glass vessel or a glass house. Consider this as a glass house, or I can say this as a glass ecosystem. Okay, we will call this as a glass ecosystem. Now, if we have some kind of species of animals, that is flora, that is fauna, and plants, that is animals. If I have here some plants and there are some animals here. Okay? Now, if the sunlight is coming here, or this is an insolation. This is insolation. This insolation is of short wavelength. They are of shorter wavelength. But as this wavelengths, as this sunlight, it passes the glass fields and they get reflected inside these glasses. it becomes a long wave radiation. They become a long wave radiation. Now, these long wave radiations, they are trapped inside the glass. They get trapped inside the glass. Why they are trapped inside? Because they are now of longer wavelengths. They are now of longer wavelengths. So this is now here, it is getting reflected. It will go back, but it will get reflected again into the different direction. Okay, clear what is happening inside a glass ecosystem? Now, consider I have Earth. I have here Earth. Now, here, because of increased human activities, we have a layer of greenhouse gases. We have a layer of greenhouse gases. Now, insolation is coming similarly as in the glass ecosystem. Now, what is happening inside this system? This long wave radiations, they are being trapped. They are being trapped inside this system, because of which there is increase. There is increase in temperature. Increase in temperature of Earth. Now, these aspects of climate change, it is related with the greenhouse gases. These greenhouse gases, they not only increase the temperature of the oceans, but they also do other kind of things. For example, ocean acidification. In ocean acidification, what happens? If I have here, this is terrestrial part, and this is the sea or ocean part. Okay? As we know that some kind of CO2 is dissolved in the oceans, but its quantity is less. We know that oceans consists of various kind of salts. So its nature is basically basic. Its pH value is around 8. The pH value of ocean is around 8. But what is happening now? Because we have the increased CO2 or increased greenhouse gases. These greenhouse gases, they are getting dissolved in the oceans. They get dissolved and they form weak acids. They form weak acids of H plus ions. Now, what these weak acids do? These weak acids, they dissolve the calcareous deposits that are found on the shelf of the oceans. They get dissolved because of this acidification. So this acidification, it is affecting the marine ecosystem. That's why it is included as a problem of environment. Now, next part is eutrophication. Eutrophication, we know that when we have a stream, when we have a water stream, it is flowing and it is getting connected to a lake. It is getting connected to a lake. So if this is a lake, if this is a lake, there will be various kind of marine species, because here we have photic zone. We have photic zone here. Here we have phytoplanktons. Here we have phytoplanktons that are developing because of the sunlight. That are developing because of the sunlight. Now, what is happening here? When there is an agricultural tract, consider this is as a agricultural tract. Now, We know that in agriculture there are uses of pesticides and insecticides and fertilizers. Because of the use of fertilizers, there is increased dissolution of phosphorus, nitrogen, and sulfur minerals into the water stream of the and to sulfur, phosphate, etc. These nutrients are being dissolved in this river stream. Now, by flowing, they come inside the lake or the lake ecosystem. Here, what will happen next? These nutrients, they will get dispersed, and there are some algae which feed on these nutrients. Their population will just explode because of the presence of these nutrients. So what will happen next? There will be a layer. There will be a layer of these algae that will be formed on the surface of the lake. These algae, they will, what they will do? First thing, they will decrease the intensity of sunlight. They will stop the sunlight from entering into the lake. So what will happen next? This photic zone, it will disappear. There will be no sunlight. Next is the algae or phytoplanktons that were present here. They will be, they will die or they will diminish. Next is the marine species like fishes, which were feeding on these phytoplanktons. They will also die. So there will be large accumulation of dead organic matter in this lake. Next thing will, what will happen? That there will be increase in biological oxygen demand. Biological oxygen demand of this lake, because now the lake consists of less dissolved oxygen as they were used by the algal bloom and the marine ecosystem. So this process or this result, it is called as eutrophication. Eutrophication of lakes. This eutrophication, it makes this lake as a dead zone. It makes this lake as a dead zone. That's why it is a problem of, or it is a concern of the environment. Now, next is ozone depletion. In the similar way that we have seen that we have various kind of refrigerants that are used in the air conditioners, and we also have other chemicals like chlorine, bromine, we have CFCs, HFCs that are being released into the atmosphere. What these chlorines and CFCs does, they go to the stratosphere and they react with the ozone layer. What they does then next, they break the ozone layer into oxygen and a oxygen radical, that is O2, and an oxygen radical molecule. This oxygen radical molecule then again react with the chlorine or bromine, and it becomes a chain reaction that a large amount of chlorine, a large amount of oxygen or ozone is being damaged, or they are disintegrated because of the chlorine or bromine or CFCs or HFCs. So that's why they are hazardous or they are of problems of concern. Now next is mitigation strategies. There are various kind of mitigation strategies that have been adopted to tackle these problems. For example, for climate change, we have lots of conventions. Like we had Bonn Convention, we had Stockholm Conventions. Then for acidification, there are various acts and policies which put some kind of restriction on the use of and fertilizers and pesticides. Then next is ozone depletion. We have Montreal Protocol, we have Vienna Protocol. Through these protocols, there is reduction in use of CFCs and HFCs, which are released into the atmosphere. Okay? Next is India and climate change. In India also, we have made various kinds of acts and policies like Air Act Environmental Act, Protection Act, we have Forest Act. So what this act does, they form some kind of strategies or policies. And on that policies, there are various authorities which try to mitigate these issues or tackle these problems so that they are less or they are of less concern. Okay? So next we will be going to the part of environmental pollution. So in environmental pollution, we will be saying that there are various kinds of pollutants. As we have seen in the previous part, that we create some kind of wastes. If those wastes that are not disposed of properly, then they become pollutant. And after they become pollutant, they degrade the environment. So these pollutants, they can be polluting the air, so it makes air pollution. It pollutes water, resulting in water pollution. It pollutes soil, so it is a soil pollution. Now, besides this, if there is some engine, a large engine running in the vicinity, and it crosses the limit of 80 decibels, 80 decibels. So after crossing this limit, it becomes a noise pollution. Okay? So there are various laws so that this noise pollution can also be controlled. After that, there is radiation pollution or radioactive pollution. What is radioactive pollution basically? If there is some decay of radioactive material, so it will release some kind of gamma rays, X rays, beta rays. These rays are harmful for the species and for human beings. So they can be a hazard to the species or human beings. So they become a pollutant. Now, there was one report in a recently that it has shown that because of mining activities, there was surfacing of uranium minerals in the Bihar and Karnataka region, because of which there was leaching of this uranium mineral into the groundwater. So the people were of those region, they were drinking the polluted, radioactive polluted water there because of the mining activities. So it was a hazard. It is a hazard to human beings. So this radioactive pollution, they are needed to be controlled through the mining activities. Next is e-waste. What are e-waste? For example, if I have a computer, its life can be maximum of 6 to 7 years. If I have a mobile phone, its life can be of maximum of 3 to 4 years. But after moving further, these products, mobiles and laptops, they become non-usable. So they are needed to be disposed. But in India, these products, after becoming waste, their recovery percentage is just 8 to 10%. Rest 90 to 92% of these components, they become waste. This 90 to 92%, they become waste. So a guidelines of e-waste management rules in 2016 was issued so that there is a proper disposal of e-wastes. Okay? Next is solid waste. Like we have said earlier, that there are various kind of solid, liquid, biological waste that are being produced by human beings. So this waste, they become pollutant or they can be of serious concern. So there are solid waste management rules 2016 to tackle this kind of solid pollutants. Next is bioremediation. What is bioremediation? Now, if I have some kind of pollutant, if, for example, I have a oil slippage, this is the C part, okay? This is C part and this is a continent. This is C. For example, if there is oil that has been released into this oceanic part. Now, what will happen here? That if I want to remove this oil from the in situ, if I want to remove this oil in situ. Then what I can use? I can use oil zappers. I can use oil zappers. So these oil zappers, they will decay these oil particles, and after they are decayed, they will be mixed into the environment and they will be of less problem or they will cause less harm. So this process of in situ treatment of waste with the organic or inorganic molecules or issues, they will, it is called as bioremediation. It is called as bioremediation. Okay. Now next part we have of biodiversity. Next part we have of biodiversity. Basically, what is biodiversity? Biodiversity is the species richness. It is the species richness of flora or fauna. Species richness of flora or fauna in the earth. Or I can say that all the species of earth, that is animal or plant, be it human being or virus, it is part of a biodiversity because we all are some kind of a species. Okay? So we become a biodiversity. So there are various types of biodiversity. There are various types of species. There is species richness. So this species richness, they are being classified into different types that we'll be seeing here like this. That first thing is flora and fauna. That is plants and animals. Flora and fauna. Now they are divided on the basis of vertebrates and non-vertebrates, first thing. Then in vertebrates, there are human beings, fishes, there are other kind of animals. And in the non-vertebrates, there are various kinds of microorganisms or non-microorganisms. And in the flora part, that is plant, there is further classification upon the types of leaves or their types of the interaction with the environment. Okay? Next is marine microorganisms or marine organisms. What are marine organisms? The organisms which live inside the marine or oceanic part or the lakes or water part. They are marine organisms. Now, we have seen earlier that because of eutrophication of lake, there was a threat to the marine species. So we can say that there is a threat to biodiversity. Now, for example, we have seen your lake eutrophication, but if we will see a grassland ecosystem, in that grassland ecosystem, a fire can occur anytime or during the summer days. These fires, they destroy the large part of grasses and trees, and also a large part of animals also die because of fire and smoke that is formed because of that fire. So to tackle these kind of threats, there have been various kind of policies have been formed, or the various kind of things have been made to protect this kind of ecosystems. So next, because of these threats, there are protected area networks. These protected area networks, they consist of various national parks, wildlife sanctuaries, biosphere reserves, reserved and protected forests, conservation and community reserves, and village and panchayat. Okay. Now, what these things do? These are the various levels at which a national park or a species or biodiversity is protected. At a national park, there is a different kind of protection level, but at a biosphere reserve, there is a different kind of protection level. In national parks, human activities are very limited, but in biosphere reserve, there is a core zone. After that core zone, the human activities are permitted. Similarly, the panchayats and village, they also take part in the conservation of the biodiversity through forming conservation and community reserves. They form communities. Some villages, they come together and they take a part of land. On that land, they grow various kind of trees and plants. These trees and plants then after is used by themselves. or the people who are socially and economically backward. So they use the outputs of those reserve forests. So it is a community forest. That is, it is made for the benefit of the community. Okay? So that is a community reserve. Next is forests, private protected areas, and conservation areas. So the forest areas, they are being defined. The private protected areas, they are also defined in a different way. And similarly, the conservation areas, they are also defined in a different way. In forests, they are defined by the central government. Next is private protected areas. They are the protected areas which are defined by the state governments. For example, there is a community. Those community wants to plant some trees or forests. So it can be of the community part, or there can be some private institutes or private players. Those want to plant some trees. So this is just a classification on the basis of the land on which these forests are being planted. Okay? Next is biodiversity conservation efforts. Biodiversity conservation efforts is the efforts that are being made to conserve the species that are found in a particular biodiversity. So the efforts, we will see in further lectures that how the efforts are being made. Now next is Indian biodiversity and conservation efforts. Now in India, we have various acts like Biological Diversity Act, and there is an amendment in 2021 that how this biological diversity areas or the biodiversity, they can be improved. So we have a amendment in Biological Diversity Amendment Act 2021. Next is bioprospecting, biosafety, and biopiracy. We will be seeing them further in details. Next we have here is the conservation efforts, India and the world. Now, this is a very important part as per the prelims topic, because year on year there are 3 to 4 questions, or on some year there is no questions from these parts. So there are various institutional and organizational mechanisms. For example, there is IPCC, International Panel on Climate Change. There is UNEP. There is UNFCCC. Okay? So these are the institutionals and organizations. What they do basically, what this institutional and organizational mechanisms are for. They are for the conservation of environment. They are for the conservation of biodiversity. Now, how this conservation can be made? It can be made on different types of grounds. For example, if there is a transboundary trade of animals or plants, then there is CITES, which controls this trade. If there are transboundary movement of hazardous waste, then there is Stockholm Convention, there is Rotterdam Convention. So conventions are part of environmental conventions. This convention, like Montreal Protocol, Vienna Convention, they form the part of environmental conventions, because they are made for a very specific part, for a very specific part of environment that can be conserved. So there are conventions. Next is environmental acts and policies. In India, we have Environmental Protection Act, we have Forest Protection Act, Forest Act, we have Air Act, we have Water Act. So they are formed to protect a particular part of, or the particular component of the environment. Okay? We'll be seeing them further. Now, sustainable development. What is sustainable development? As we have seen that we are using some kind of resources. Our earth is limited. Okay? We are having a very huge population at this point. Now, if we consume these resources at the present rate, will these resources be available to the future generations for our kids? It is very less likely that it will be available. So we need to have a very basic knowledge, or we have to have a very basic approach, so that the same amount of resources that we are using right now shall be passed on to the future generation and shall be passed on by them to the next generation. So this passing on of the same resources at same level, it is a sustainable development. So for sustainable development, there are various types of goals have been made, like to reduce poverty, to have clean energy, etc. So we will be looking for this in further. Next is environmental monitoring and impact assessment. We have seen earlier that what is environmental impact assessment, like how a community or a village that can be affected because of the some project. For example, that we have seen the example of the dam, that how it has affected the forest part also and human settlement part also. So that is the part of environmental impact assessment. Okay. Next we have here the analysis. So why do we need to analyze? The analysis of questions that are being asked in UPSC from the environment and disaster management. From the environment and disaster management. If we will see this closely, we have made a trend analysis. So what conclusion can we make here from this trend analysis? This blue one is of environment part, and this yellow one, it is of disaster management part. So we can see that at least two questions are being asked, sometimes 3 to 4 questions also from the environmental part. But there is a trend of one questions from disaster management part. In 2021, there were two questions from disaster management. One question was on landslide and one question was on earthquake. Okay? So, analyzing these questions, analyzing this trend, we can make a very specific approach that how to tackle the environment and disaster management part of the GS paper 3. Next, we have a trend on prelims part. So in prelims, as we can see, the number of questions are varying from 25 to 13, 11, and 22 in the different years. So this number of questions, when they become part of prelims, it becomes a very important part that how we can tackle these questions of environment so that the paper can be cracked. Now, what is cracking the paper? What is cracking prelims? I am studying something, but if I am not able to analyze those things properly, so it will just waste my 1 year. But if I am able to make a very good approach, if I am able to track down or crack down the question, so it requires a very huge amount of effort, a very good amount of guidance that is required to crack this kind of questions, because now the difficulty level of UPSC has been increased. So, analyzing this trend further, we can see that there are 25 questions asked in 2021, and there was least 11 questions were asked in 2018. So, following these trends, I can say that in 2022, there can be at least 20 or 18 questions minimum that can be asked from environment and ecology. So, how can I tackle this number of questions? Can I just get these questions answered from the standard books that are available right now? No. I cannot answer all the questions through the standard books that are available right now. So what is more required? The more is required is the strategy, the analysis part, and the material part. So this material or this analysis that will be provided by the guidance Guidance Institute. So we have to be very basic in the making the approach or tackling these questions of environment and ecology in prelims. So Here we will be starting with the next part, that is we will be taking few questions on the environment and disaster management. So first question I will be taking here with the first question is, explain the purpose of Green Grid Initiative launched at the World Leaders Summit. Green Grid Initiative, my first point. Second is World Leaders Summit, my second point, of the COP26 United Nations Climate Change Conference in Glasgow in November 2021. This has also been specified. Now it is asking second part here. Here is, when was the idea first floated in the International Solar Alliance? Okay. In first part of the question, it is asking one thing which has taken place in 2021, but it has also asked the inception of the idea which was taken place in the International Solar Alliance. So taking these two parts, we have two parts here to answer. First is, what is Green Grid Initiative? Second part is, when this idea was first floated. Okay, so we have to specify the place and date and the country which have which have made the inception of this idea. So here, for with introduction, I will start my introduction here as, first thing is the India and United Kingdom jointly proposed or started the Green Grid Initiative at COP26, that is Glasgow Summit. Okay, my first part is, the India and UK jointly started the Green Grid Initiative at COP26 Glasgow Summit. Now, next here I will be specifying the objective of the Green Grid Initiative. The objective of the Green Grid Initiative. So objective here is to reduce the greenhouse gases or reducing the fossil fuel pollutants and providing the cost effective and clean energy to the world. Okay, so I can write here like this, that first thing is, the initiative was taken by India and United Kingdom, and it was taken jointly. After that, we can here say that what they are doing, they are reducing the greenhouse gases or reducing the fossil fuel pollutants. Second thing, and there will be provision of cost effective and clean energy to the world. Now, second step, if I want to take, I will just, for explaining, I can make a diagram here. If this is Earth, okay, this is Tropic of Cancer, this is Tropic of Capricorn. So, here, the countries which are lying between the Tropic of Cancer and Tropic of Capricorn, they all will be connected with each other in the form of a grid. They will be connected with each other in the form of a grid. So this is the belt. This tropical region, this belt, it receives maximum insolation. This belt, it receives the maximum insolation. So we can convert the energy of sunlight that is received in this region into the usable form, that is electricity. Okay, so this is a clean energy, which is a green kind of energy, and it will be converted to electricity or electrical energy. And this energy, it will be connected with almost all the continents, that is Asia, Africa, Europe, North America, South America. So in the grid form, there will be a global grid that will be able to transfer the electricity that is produced in one continent to another continent through this green grid. So basic idea here is the what is green grid. So this is the green grid system. Now, next I can write here is the significance of green grid initiative. The significance of green grid initiative. Now, what can be the best aspect that we can write here of the green grid initiative? So the first thing is there will be reduction in the fossil fuel consumption. There will be reduction in fossil fuel consumption, or I can say that there will be fossil free or fossil fuel free economy. I can say that it can form a fossil fuel free economy. So what I can here write here is the energy produced due to the burning of fossil fuels will be replaced by the green or the solar energy. Okay, my first point is here clear that this will be replaced by the green energy or the electricity that is formed by the green grid initiative. Now, second point can be intercontinental intercontinental connectivity. My second point is intercontinental connectivity. So what is this intercontinental connectivity? As we have seen in the earlier slide, that there are various continents that will be connected. For example, if I'll make here like this is Africa, South America, North America, this is Europe part, this is India, and this is Australia. So some of the other continents, they lie in this region of green grid. So I can say here that this intercontinental connectivity, it will increase the energy distribution within the various continents. Okay, there will be increased distribution of energy between the various continents. Now, I will explain the third part here as if I have a source of energy as sun, if I have a source of energy as sun, so there is insolation all the time, there is insolation all the time, that is 24 hours. But this insolation is received for 12 hours or for less duration of hours at this point and most duration of hours at this point. Okay, so I will take an average of 12 hours. So 12 hours there will be day, and for 12 hours there will be night. So I can say that with this grid connectivity, there will be distribution of energy equally during the day and night. That is, if this part is having night, so this part can distribute energy to this part during night. So there will be continuous distribution of energy during the day and night. So my third point here can be, third point, there will be 24/7 supply of green or clean energy, which will be distributed during day to night regions. Okay, clear this part? That how this energy can be distributed? Now, next part here is fourth part, that there will be increased amount of research. There will be finances and research. Finances and research that will be made in this field. This finance will be made by the big economies or the developed economies. And there will provide research and finance for the development of the green grid. Okay, so there will be research and there will be finances. Now, next part is here. As we have seen that we have now explained in some part, as this question is of 150 words. So we will be limiting this part to here only, and we'll be seeing that what will be the next part. Now we have seen that what is the Green Grid Initiative. Second is we have explained the significance of the Green Grid Initiative. Now we will be answering the third part, that when was the idea first floated in the International Solar Alliance. Now, here we will be explaining this like as, now, the idea of green grid was floated at International Solar Alliance in 2015 by the Prime Minister of India. Prime Minister of India. And at that time, it was supported by the Prime Minister of France and supported by Prime Minister of France. Now, why we need to specify this part? It is optional. If you want to specify this support part, it is good. If you don't want to, it can be just left out. But if you will specify this thing, it will make an impression that how you know better things. Okay? Now, why this was proposed? Why there was a green grid was proposed? Now we will be saying here it is that the objective of the proposal of green grid was to supply of green fuel to the people of all the regions of the world, that is poor and rich equally. There should be access of resource, that is clean energy, which should be provided to all the people of the world. So this is a part of Sustainable Development Goal 7. Okay? This is a part of Sustainable Development Goal, that is green fuel. Now second part is, if large amount of energy is being provided to any economy, so it will boost that economy. So in that economy, the people will start coming out of poverty. So second point here will be to decrease the poverty level of the world, as this is a world initiative. As this is a world initiative. So here this is a Sustainable Development Goal 1. Okay. So here we can see that. So here we can say that the idea was floated by the Prime Minister of India and it was supported by various countries of the world. So here we have included two sustainable development goals, that is the green fuel development goal of SDG 7 and the poverty reduction, decrease the poverty level, that is sustainable development goal 1. Okay, so this is the significance. Now, if I want to conclude this answer, if I want to conclude this answer, how can I conclude it? So conclusion can be made like this. The green grid initiative was proposed at the World Leaders Summit or COP26, which has potential to make not only equity at regional level but world level. Okay? So by these statements, we can make a conclusion that how a one initiative that can make a complete world, that is, it can create equity at the world level. Okay? So do you have any doubts in this question? I will move further then. Okay? Next here is, next question is of describe the, second question. Describe the key points of the revived global air quality guidelines recently released by the World Health Organization. Okay, so here the guidelines have been issued by the World Health Organization for the air quality. For the air quality. Now, before this, in 2005, there was a release of the guidelines. So, after 16 years, the new guidelines have been released. Now, second part is how are these different from its last update in 2005? So, how these two guidelines are different? What changes in India's National Clean Air Program are required to achieve these revised standards? Now, here there are 3 points in this question. The question is demanding is first thing, what are the latest guidelines? What are the key features of the latest guidelines? Second point is what are the differences between the latest guidelines and its predecessor? Third part is in India's context, what is the National Clean Air Program and how what are the requirements to achieve the standard been provided by the WHO. So we'll be seeing this question like as first thing. First thing here is like WHO has released the latest global air quality guidelines, that is 2021, and it has included 6 factors. 6 factors for the assessment of the air quality. Okay, what are the 6 factors? We can see here like this. Okay, here we can see that the guidelines have been revised after 16 years. Okay, earlier it was given in 2005 and nextly it has given in 2021. So here we can see that there is PM 2.5 first, there is PM10 second, there is ozone third, there is NO2 that is nitrous oxide third, fourth, there is sulfur dioxide and there is carbon monoxide. So what are the different levels? What are the changes in the levels? That has been specified by the World Health Organization. And these specifications have to be included by the countries. So what are the changes in the levels? We can see here is the annual mean, that is the first part of PM 2.5. The annual mean, it has revised from 10 to 5. Okay, it has reduced from 10 to 5. Second, for 24 hours mean, that is the amount of PM 2.5 that a maximum should be released in atmosphere in a 24-hour period, that should not be more than 25 in 2005 and 15 in 2021. So it has reduced the level of PM 2.5. Next is PM10. The annual mean average of 2005 is 20, but it has revised it to 15 in 2021. Similarly, for 24 hours mean, that is in a day, maximum PM10 particles should not be more than 50 and 2005, and it should not be more than 45 in 2021. So they have been reduced. Next is O3, that is ozone. So ozone in the peak season. Ozone in the peak season means ozone also behaves as a persistent organic pollutant. Okay? It also behaves as a persistent organic pollutant. So it can be maximum in the winter season. So in the peak season, it should not be more than 60 in 2021, but it was not specified in 2005. Okay. Now, the 8-hour mean, that is the night time, it can be. So it should not be more than 100 ppm, and it is kept same because it is like it cannot be reduced further to be below 100 point. Now, next is NO2. Now, NO2 is, its annual mean is 40 in 2005, and now it has become 10 in 2021. Why it has become 10 in 2021? Because the amount of N2 that can be released in the environment has been controlled drastically through various measures, like decrease in fertilization. There is sequestration of nitrogen gas also. Therefore, it has specified 10. Now, next is for 24-hour means it was not specified in 2005, but it has come to 25 for 2021. Similarly, for sulfur dioxide, 24-hour mean, it is 20 in 2005, but it has become 40 in 2021. Because of the various reasons, these guidelines, this 40, it has increased. So what is the major mark here? That we need to remember that this increase in the SO2 level, it has to be marked down. It has to be specified. Okay. Next is carbon monoxide, which was not specified in 2005, but now it has 4 for single day. Okay. If we will compare it with the Indian part, that was the second part of the question. That was the second part of the question. That what changes in India's National Clean Air Program are required to achieve these revised standards. So, to know these standards, first we need to know that what are the Indian standards. What India is currently having standards for the pollutions. So, this is the Indian part. Okay, this is WHO part. Now, we will just compare that what is the Indian part and what is the WHO part. So, for PM10 annual, WHO is 20 and India is having a standard of 60, which is quite higher. Second is PM 2.5, PM10 daily, which is 50 by WHO, but it is 100 for India. Now, similarly, if we will see, there is 10 and 40 for PM 2.5. WHO says 25 and India says it is 60. Similarly, for ozone layer, it is 100 and 100. Now, this 100, it is the thing which is India is fulfilling. So there are few things on which India is fulfilling, like ozone 180, 180. Here it is fulfilled. 40, 40 for NO2 level. It is being fulfilled. NO2 daily level, WHO has not specified anything, but India has given standard of 80. So India is doing good on this part. Next is NO2 1 hour level. Here it is 200, but India is not specified on this part. Now, what we need to remember here from this part, that is PM10, PM 2.5, ozone, SO2, NO2 annual, SO2 annual, CO, 8 hours. Okay, these are the data that we should remember for the examination point of view. So, as we know that few of the pollutants that are on higher side. So, what India can do, or what India NCAP can do to reduce these levels. So the second part is what changes in India National Clean Air Program are required to achieve these revised standards. What we can write here. So I am just writing here the conclusion or the later part of the question or the second part of the question. The NCAP requires to overhaul its implementation strategy to achieve the standards of WHO. Now, how NCAP can do this? So first thing is it can have some stringent implementations. The stringent implementation. For example, how it can be made stringent. Currently, these levels, they are not legally binding. They are not legally binding. So, by legally binding the specified limits on various authorities or institutions so that they can limit the release of these pollutants in the environment. They can limit the release of these pollutants in the environment. Second can be framing better policies. Framing better policies. Now, how these policies can be made better? By including the experts on the subject, or I can write here that by including the experts on the panel who have experience in this field, Now, third point here can be that what are the challenges? What are the challenges in the implementation? So challenges here will be the challenges that NCAP is facing right now. First challenge here can be that there are lack of resources. There are lack of resources. Like how to measure this vast level of geographical area of India. Because of such a vast level of geographical area, the NCAP has limited resources so that it cannot measure the pollutants levels at every states or every regions. Second is the lack of experienced people or the experienced individuals. Now, for implementing these policies or reducing the pollution at such a large level, the NCAP will require a large number of experienced people which will be which will be deployed in various states, various districts, and various villages also, where the pollution levels are very high. So they lack this individual or experienced individuals. Third point here can be the resources. Sorry, resources have been covered. The lack of policies. The lack of policies. As we know here, that the policies are being made, but they are not made according to the present requirement or the present situation. They are being made keeping various factors in mind. But because of these various factors, there is increase in the pollution level. There is this policies cannot work properly. Okay? So taking these things in mind, we can say that here concluding, we can say like our question started from the WHO requirements, that what are the WHO requirements, what standards it has specified, and next what NCAP is doing currently, where it is lacking. So we can write here conclusion as the standards of global air quality guidelines need to be achieved by India through the stringent implementation policies and making stringent laws. Okay? So this can be conclusion here, that the guidelines or the standards that are being provided by WHO, they are need to be achieved by India through the stringent implementation of policies and making stringent laws. Okay? So moving to the next question we have here is the disaster management part. In disaster management part, we will be seeing here, okay, the disaster management part will be say taking one questions because of the limit of time. So the question is, discuss about the vulnerability of India. Discuss about the vulnerability of India to earthquakes related hazards. Okay, as I've shown you earlier, that earthquake is an hazard, but when it causes disruption or the loss of life and property, it becomes a hazard. So next part it is asking, give examples including the salient features of major disasters caused by earthquakes in different parts of India during the last 3 decades. Okay? There are three parts in this question, as we can see. The first part is vulnerability of India to earthquake as a hazard. First thing. It is not asking disaster, but it is asking hazard. Second part is give examples including the salient features of major disasters caused by the earthquakes in different parts of India. Okay, in the last 3 decades, that is, in the last 30 years, we need to specify that the earthquakes of the highest intensity that have taken place. So, we can start here with the part as, we can start here like this. First thing, what is earthquake? Earthquakes. Earthquakes are sudden release of energy in the earth or inside the earth, comma, then they are distributed in the form of P waves, S waves, and surface waves, causing large scale destructions. Causing large scale destructions. So I can just give a definition of earthquake, that what is an earthquake and how it is traveling. So next point here, I can just continue with what are the earthquakes I have specified now. Maximum earthquakes are of tectonic origin. They are of tectonic origin. That is, the tectonic plates are involved in the origin of these earthquakes. Now, here, as there is subduction or friction between the plates, as there is subduction or friction between the plates. So here I have just tried to give an introduction of how the earthquake is formed and what is the reason of earthquake and how these earthquakes are propagated. So in these lines I have specified the earthquake. Now, second thing it is asking me that the discuss about the vulnerability of India to earthquake related hazards. Now, in the map of India, I'll just show you a map. So here we can see that how this earthquake is distributed in India. Here we can see the maximum amount of earthquakes or the highest intensity of earthquakes are occurred in the zone 5. Now, where this zone 5 is situated, it is situated in the regions of Himalayas or the northeast India. This is the part of Sikkim or Nepal and the Gujarat part. Okay, this is the zone 5. Why earthquakes are maximum here on this part? First thing, here the tectonic activities or the movement of plates are have been taken place or are being taking place till now. So Himalayas formation, okay. Now in Gujarat part, we have seen that in 2004 there was earthquake in Bhuj. So in Bhuj we have seen there was a formation of Allaband Dam or Allaband Valley. So because of this creek or the valley which was formed because of the earthquake, so this was formed because of two plates. They have rifted apart. They have moved away from each other. So because of this rifting of plate, there is a zone 5 in this region of Gujarat. Now, zone 4. Zone 4 here we can see that it is of less danger or less hazard or less intensity compared to zone 5. But this zone 4, it is situated in the vicinity of the zone 5. We can see that it is situated in the vicinity of zone 5. That is, if an earthquake occurs in the tectonically active region, it will be distributed or there will be movement of plates in the zone 4 region also, which is of less intensity. Similarly, in Gujarat also we can see the zone 4 is situated in the vicinity of Gujarat, that is zone 5. There is zone 4 here also in the Latur region of Maharashtra. Now, why it is situated here in the zone 5? Because in 1991, there was an earthquake in the Bhima River region, that is the Latur region, which had almost destruction of 2000. That is, there was a death of almost 2000 people in this region. So, why this region had earthquake? It is a tectonically active region. But second thing is, there was a formation of dam, there was a construction of dam in this region. So because of the construction of dam, there was already a gap that was formed in that region. So the water which was passing through that area, it filled that gap. And because of the gap, this region again became tectonically active. So because of tectonically active part of that region, there was a earthquake that had occurred in 1991. Now, in zone 3, we can see that zone 3 is situated on the vicinity of the zone 4 region. Zone 3, zone 4, this is 5, this is 4, this is zone 3. Okay? Similarly, the zone 2 region, it is situated on the vicinity or the periphery of the zone 3 region. So, in this way, we can, if I want to make a map of vulnerable part of India, which is prone to hazard of earthquakes, I can just make first part is tectonically active regions of India. First part, zone 5. Then its vicinity part, that is Jammu Kashmir, Uttarakhand, some part of Delhi, then Uttar Pradesh, some part of Bihar. This is in zone 4. Then next is zone 3. Zone 3 part is in the vicinity of the zone 4 region. Okay? Now, here we can see that one more thing, that zone 3 consists of the Western Ghats part. Okay? Zone 3 also consists of the parts of the Eastern Ghats. Okay? Now, we can also see here that this is a Satpura range. Okay? Here is also another Rift Valley system from which the river Narmada and Tapi passes through. But this is less prone to the earthquake. So just imagine that what are the different parts, that how this region is distributed geographically. We can make this map very easily. Most tectonically active region, okay. Second thing is, if least tectonically active region, that is the Creton parts of India. So this is the Great Plain part, this is the Great Plain of India, and this is the Malwa Plateau region. Okay, Malwa and Marwar Plateau region, or the Central India region. Here is the Deccan Traps. Deccan Trap region, Chota Nagpur region, okay, Dharwar region. So they are cratons. These are the tectonically least active regions. So we can classify them according to the landforms which are present on these regions. Now, next is the next part of the question is that give examples including the sorry give examples including the salient features of major disasters caused by earthquakes in different parts of India during the last 3 decades. Now, if I want to identify the earthquakes that have occurred in the last 3 decades, if I want to give one or two or three examples. So first I have specified here as the Latur earthquake. Latur earthquake. Its intensity was around 6.5. Its intensity was around 6.5. But it has caused large scale destruction. It was caused the reason of this earthquake was the construction of dam on the Latur region, which had tectonically tectonically non-active, but tectonic, there was a tectonic rift present in that region. Okay. So what this dam did, this dam put pressure on this tectonically rift region. So in this rift, the water was filled, and because of that pressure, there was a earthquake. Okay. So it occurred in 1991. Now, second kind of earthquake that if I want to give example of, it will be of Bhuj earthquake. Bhuj earthquake. It is one of the most destructive earthquake that India has seen. Its magnitude was around 9.1. Its magnitude was around 9.1 intensity. And second thing is, it occurred in 2001. It had occurred in 2001. Why this earthquake had occurred? Because of the Rift Valley. Because of the rift that is connected to the Indian plate and the Arabian plate. We have seen that Indian plate is connected with the Arabian plate in one part. Arabian plate is a minor plate. And on the southern part, on the northern part, Indian plate is connected with the Eurasian plate. And on the southern part, Indian plate is connected with the African plate on one side and on the Antarctican plate on the southern side. So, because of this Arabian plate, there was a interconnection, there was some rifting or friction that occurred between these two plates, due to which there was a earthquake. Okay? So third example is not directly related with India, but it has caused hazard, it has caused disaster in India. That's why we can include this earthquake as a Indian part. This tsunami of 2004. Okay? The tsunami of 2004. Here, the disaster, basically, the earthquake occurred in the Indonesian region. The earthquake occurred in the Indonesian region. But because of this earthquake, there was a large tsunami occurred. This tsunami caused destruction in the Indian part. This tsunami caused destruction in the Indian coastal part. Therefore, we consider this as a destruction or disaster in India. Okay? So, if I want to specify here the plates regions here will be, it occurred between the Indian plate, comma, Burmese plate, and the Sunda plate. Okay? This earthquake occurred between the Indian plate, Burmese plate, and Sunda plate. And because of this earthquake, the Burmese plate it subsided. The Burmese plate subsided, which created this tsunami. Okay? So these are the 2-3 examples that we can specify with regard to the earthquakes of India. Now, if I want to just make a conclusion here, if I want to make a conclusion here, what I can write here, that India is vulnerable to the earthquakes. India is vulnerable to the earthquakes because of the tectonically active regions, tectonically active regions. Second, I can write here as construction of big dams, construction of big dams and nuclear bomb explosions. Nuclear bomb explosions. Other reasons can be mining activities. Other reasons can be mining activities. So, comma, if I am specifying that because of these reasons, there are earthquakes occurring in India. So, we can here make conclusion that, comma, by preparing well in advance, by preparing well in advance by the following of by the following of NDMA guidelines. By the following of NDMA guidelines, the hazards of earthquakes can be stopped from becoming a disaster. So, by preparing well in advance by the following of NDMA guidelines, the hazards of earthquakes can be stopped. Either we can write here stop or can be reduced from becoming a disaster. The answer conclusion should be a very positive note that should specify that you are having a very positive approach. So this will help you get better prospects or better marks from the examiner. Okay, moving forward, okay, we have seen two questions from the environmental part and one question from the disaster management part. We will be seeing some questions on the prelims questions or the prelims part. Here we can see that the questions that have been asked in 2021 examination. So we'll be having some interactive class so that you might be able to ask the question. I will just have the explanation of that part. So first question is, the United Nations Capital Development Fund, UNCDF, and the Arbor Day Foundation, okay, United Nations Capital Development Fund and the Arbor Day Foundation have recently recognized Hyderabad as 2020 Tree City of the World. Okay, this is my first statement. Now, second statement it is asking, Hyderabad was selected for recognition for a year for following its commitment to grow and maintain the urban forests. So basically here, the point is on the two parts. The first part is UNCDF, second is Arbor Day Foundation, and third part here is Hyderabad, which has been awarded this part. Okay, Hyderabad has been awarded as the tree city of the world for maintaining the urban forest. Now, if we have seen the current aspects, if we have gone through the current issues properly, then only we will be able to answer this kind of questions, because this is very core question of environment that is related to current aspect. So if you know this part very well, then only it will be advisable to attempt such kind of questions. Because here the twist is the United Nations Capital Development Fund. This was not the part, but it was Food and Agriculture Organization, that is FAO. Food and Agriculture Organization and Arbor Day Foundation. They both have collaborated together to recognize Hyderabad as tree city of the world. So looking at this statement, I will just I will just strike out the statement 1 as incorrect. So here both statement 1 and statement 2 are correct. I will cross this part. Then second part here is both statement 1 and statement 2 are correct. But statement 2 is not the correct explanation of statement 1. This will also be cancelled. Now statement C is statement 1 is correct, but statement 2 is not correct. We have seen that this statement is incorrect. This will be cancelled. So my final statement is the statement 1 is not correct, but statement 2 is correct. So this will be my final answer. But this can be answered only if one knows that who has formed this Tree City of the World award. Okay. So next question we will be seeing here, that in the context of India's preparation of climate smart agriculture, okay, India's preparation for climate smart agriculture, consider the following statements. Now, climate smart agriculture. Why climate smart agriculture is important? Why is it is in news? There have been very much researches are being going currently on climate smart agriculture. India is one of the part. India is just one of the part of this international organizations that are specified here. So, we will be seeing the statement as the climate smart village approach in India is part of project led by climate change, agriculture and food security, that is CCAFS. Now, an international research program. So it is saying that the climate smart village approach which is being implemented. So India is part of that plan. Now, next question is the project of CCAF. Okay, the project of this CCAF is carried out under consultative group, under a consultative group on international agriculture research, on the international agriculture research headquartered in France. So second aspect, it is saying that this CCAF, it is under the consultative group of CGIAR, which is headquartered in France. Now third statement is the International Crops Research Institute for the Semi-Arid Tropics, that is ICRISAT, in India is one of the CGIAR's research centers. Okay, so if we will see these questions, so the same thing will be advisable. If the in-depth knowledge of climate smart agriculture is known, then such kind of question should be attempted. Now here, the statement 1 is correct. This is a correct statement. The climate smart village approach in India is part of the project led by Climate Smart and Climate Change and Agriculture and Food Security, that is CCAFS. So this is a correct statement. Second statement is also correct. This CCAFS, it is carried under the consultative group on CGIAR, which is headquartered in France. So this statement is also correct. Now third statement here is the International Crops Research Institute for the Semi-Arid Tropics. Yes, we will be coming that to later. We will see that. Semi-arid tropics in India is one of the CGIAR's research centers. So this is also a correct statement. So from here we can conclude that all the statements 1, 2, and 3 are correct statements. So here we can see that this climate smart agriculture or climate smart village, these questions have been asked previously in the UPSC exams, in the previous prelim sections also, and in the main sections also. So if we will just have a good approach that which kind of questions are being asked, which are related to the previous year's questions, then these questions can be attempted easily. But we need to have a brief analysis on which questions can be asked in the further examinations. Now there is another question here is, consider the following kinds of organisms. Consider the following kind of organisms as, first is copepods, second is cyanobacteria, third is diatoms, fourth is foraminifera. Now, actual question here is, which of the above are primary producers in the food chains of the oceans? It is asking which of the following are primary producers of the food chain of oceans. Now, if we have studied well, like how the earth was formed from the origin of earth, we have seen that the life was formed inside the ocean, first thing. The oxygen started coming later on. So, who were the organisms who were first developed? So, we know that the cyanobacteria and diatoms, they were formed firstly. Okay, they were formed firstly, and they started producing oxygens. So here we can just with the one basic knowledge, we can deduce that which of the statements can be right. But we have options here, others options also. So how to eliminate these things? So copepods and foraminifera, they are one of the parts of crustaceans. Crustaceans. Okay, so crustaceans are the consumers, but they are not the primary producers. Therefore, these two options get eliminated. And these two options, as they are the primary producers, they took sunlight and they produce their own food and they give out oxygen. Therefore, option 2 and 3 is the correct answer here. Next, we will be seeing here is, consider the following statements. First is hedgehog, second is mammoth, third is pangolin. So, here it is saying that to reduce the chance of being captured by predators, to reduce the chance of being captured by predators, which of the above organisms rolls up? Which of the organisms rolls up and protects its or their vulnerable parts? Okay, so if anyone watches National Geographic or Cartoon Network, would be able to give this answer in a better way, because there the different kind of animals are being shown. But here hedgehog, mammoth and pangolin. Pangolin is very common, it has been asked previously. But mammoth, it was not specified earlier, but it was in news due to some reasons. Hedgehog also is in news because of some reasons, but it was not in the mainstream. So here, pangolin rolls up. Okay, pangolin rolls up to protect its vulnerable parts, but mammoth, it is not rolling up. It is not one of the dead kind of species, but hedgehog, it rolls up to protect its vulnerable part. So the answer here becomes 1 and 3. Okay. Next question we will be seeing here is, the next question is, with reference to the New York Declaration on Forests, with reference to the New York Declaration of Forest, which of the following statements are correct? Okay, which of the following statements are correct? It was first endorsed at the United Nations Climate Summit in 2014. Okay, so first statement is, it was endorsed at the United Nations Climate Summit in 2014. Second statement is, it endorses a global timeline to end the loss of forests. It endorses a global timeline to end the loss of forests. Third statement is, it is a legal binding international declaration. Okay. Fourth statement is, It is endorsed by governments, big companies, and indigenous communities. Fifth statement is India was one of the signatories at its inception. Now, to attempt such a kind of questions, a brief knowledge is being required. New York Forest Declaration on Forests. Okay. If it has been read, then only this question could be answered. Now, but we will try to eliminate this thing with some of the tricks. Okay. So first thing, for statement 3, we can see it is a legally binding and international declaration. If it would had been legally binding, then it would have been known to with the main current affairs stream. So this is a wrong statement. So if I'll try to eliminate this part, so 3 and B and C, they get eliminated. Now, next is India was one of the signatories at its inception. This is also a wrong statement because if India would have been a signatory, then it would have been a mainstream news for current affairs. So, as it was not, it is not a signatory. India is not a signatory. So, we can eliminate here fifth part also. So, the option here which is remained, it is 1, 2, and 4. So, the options 1, 2, and 4 are the correct options. Okay. We will move further with some questions. Actually, I am trying to cover up. I will skip some of the questions. Okay. This question will be saying the biogeochemical cycles one. Okay. In the biogeochemical cycles, it is asking that the weathering of rocks is the main source of release of nutrients to enter the cycle. Okay, it is asking specifically that by weathering of rocks, which nutrients can be released and they can enter the cycle. So, we can eliminate this question very easily. It can be solved very easily. We know that carbon cycle. Carbon cycle is being done between plants and animals. Okay, plants they produce oxygen, they consume CO2. Humans they consume oxygen and they produce CO2. Inhale and exhale. So this cycle it gets incorrect. Nitrogen cycle, as we know that the nitrogen cycle is present in the is being done between the atmosphere and the plants by the leguminous plants. Some part is being done by the lightnings also because of the heat that is generated and the ions that are created. So they do produce nitrogen and they move the cycle of nitrogen. So they are not formed in the rocks. They are not present in the rocks. Third is phosphorus cycle and fourth is sulfur cycle. First, I will be taking sulfur cycle. In sulfur cycle, we have seen that we know that SO2, it is being released by vehicles, it is being released by thermal power plants, and through various processes, SO2 is being released. So, as it is available because of other reasons also, it gets eliminated. And the phosphorus cycle is the one cycle which is present or which is found because of the weathering of the rocks. Okay. So, next statement we will be saying, or the next question we will be saying here. Okay, R2 code of practices. Question 12 it is, R2 code of practices constitute a tool available for promoting the adoption of. Okay, R2 code of practices. It was in news. It was in mainstream news. Why it was in mainstream news? Because there have been consistently questions being asked from the e-waste managements or the e-wastes. So here the e-wastes that are environmentally responsible for practices in the electronics recycling industry. Okay. So because of this thing, the R2 codes of practices are being made. Okay. So R2 codes of practices, they are environmentally responsible practices in the electronics recycling industry. Next question we will be saying, Why is there a concern about copper smelting plants? Why there is a concern about the copper smelting plants? First option they are asking is, they may release lethal quantities of carbon monoxide. Lethal, key term it is, quantities of carbon monoxide into the environment. And second statement it is asking is, the copper slag can cause the leaching of some heavy metals. The leaching of some heavy metals into the environment. Now, third statement is it is asking, they may release sulfur dioxide as a pollutant. Okay? So three statements here. We will analyze it from the top to bottom. Now, the statement here it specifies or it says they may release sulfur dioxide as a pollutant. So here we will see that copper, in copper mines, copper is found along with the sulfur. So this is a very basic knowledge that how copper ore is found. It is found with the sulfur. It is present with it. So when we try to extract copper from its ore, it will definitely release some amount of sulfur dioxide. So this statement is correct. Now, next is the copper slag causes the leaching of some heavy metals into the environment. As copper is one of the heavy elements, so it also contains, with along with sulfur, it also contains leads, mercury, and other heavy metals like cadmium. So when we extract just copper and leave other metals untreated, they flow along with the effluents or the slag. And this slag, when it goes out of the industry, it goes into agricultural tracks. Now, as these metals are heavy, they start leaching. They start leaching into the ground. So they are accumulated at some point. So this statement is also correct. The copper slag can cause the leaching of some heavy metals into the environment. Now, first statement we will say here, they may cause lethal quantities. Okay, lethal means if I'm extracting copper from some plant, in some plant, so it can cause loss of life because of the release of carbon monoxide. It can cause loss of life because of release of the carbon monoxide. So it is not like that lethal amounts of carbon monoxide is being released, but yes, some amount of carbon monoxide is being released. So this statement is incorrect. So correct statement is 2 and 3. Okay, next we will be seeing here is, okay, last question we will be seeing. So it is asking, in nature, which of the following is or are most likely to be found surviving on a surface without soil? Which of the following can be found on surface without soil? So without soil, it can be some ground, non-soil part, just rock surface. It can be water or other things. Okay, because it is just specified soil. So we will be seeing options as first as ferns, second as lichens, third as moss, fourth as mushroom. Now, if biogeographic parts has been done very properly, then we know that moss and mushroom, they are found or they can be found on the rock surface also. Okay. Now, lichen is just a symbiotic relationship between an algae and fungi, but they require a symbiosis or environment of soils on which they develop their environment. So, lichens cannot be formed without the soil. So, this option is incorrect. But ferns can be grown on water, it can be grown on bare rock also. So this is a correct statement. Okay, I just, it can be found on this thing. So the correct option here is, actually I just did it opposite. In nature, which of the following is are most likely to be found surviving on a soil without soil? Okay, so it is without soil. So here 1, 3, and 4. This is the correct option. So this fern, moss, and mushroom, they can be found on the parts of rocks, water, and they can survive without the soil. So here I will conclude my discussion on the mains and prelim syllabus and the answer discussion. So as you have seen that there are various kinds of questions that are being asked in UPSC. So we here at Guidance IAS, we are providing a very good content. So lot of people or a very efficient team is working to provide a very good content. So it is very much advisable to not go just through the standard books. Yes, they will help you, but they will not help you although. So we can help you in a far better way. So thank you very much.